Welcome to the Brave New Wealth podcast, where we discuss optimizing wealth from a mental, physical, social, and financial perspective. I'm your host, Julienna. Bienvenue à tout le monde. Bienvenido a todos. Herzlich willkommen. Everyone is welcome here. This podcast is sponsored by Engineer Tax Services, where I am a director. Engineer Tax Services is a subsidiary of Engineer Tax Advisory, and our goal is to empower business owners, entrepreneurs, real estate investors with proven strategies, with innovative strategies, with education and expertise to help you take advantage of some of those tax strategies that are a bit more sophisticated and sometimes overlooked. Today, I am really excited to have as a special guest, David Lopez. He is the principal consultant at Summa, where he helps high-tech companies get predictable financial results by optimizing their operations. With over 15 years of experience, including roles at Deloitte and PwC, David has served as manager, director, and head of finance for various small, medium businesses and VC-backed startups. He is also a venture partner for a life science fund based in San Diego and sits on the board of 2 AI companies. He specializes in fractional CFO services. At Total Operation Control, David partners with CEOs and department heads to improve cash flows, profitability, and strategic clarity. He focuses on life sciences and specializes on manufacturing. His mantra is simplify to amplify. I love that. David, welcome.
Thank you, Juliana.
I'm so excited that you're here with me today, and I do have to tell the guests how I met you. In fact, you were presenting. You are an amazing presenter. I know you've had some TEDx talks and have presented on many stages. And I saw you at Success North Dallas. Kudos to, Bill Wells and Casey Haston, who's the CEO there. You did an amazing presentation on a topic that you are very passionate about, and maybe you'll bring that up later. But I was super impressed. So I do like to ask my guests, if you are in an elevator and you quickly have to introduce yourself, who would you say you are?
Wow. In an elevator, if I have a 60-minute pitch. Well, first of all, Juliana, thank you for having me. If I had to say who I am, I would say I'm a lot of things. If I had a business conversation and that was relevant for the elevator, I would say I'm a financial consultant and I help CEOs and companies have more predictable results, just like you mentioned earlier. But if I was with a friend, I'll probably introduce myself in a different way. And if I was with, my wife, I'll probably be more playful. But overall, I think if we're talking about business, that's what's really driving my passion. That's what I enjoy doing. And that's why I built Summa.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, David. So before we dive into what is it you do, I'd like to ask you, what is something you've done lately that was a bit out of your comfort zone, but you were like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I know it will be an opportunity to grow. So it may not be easy, it might be uncomfortable, but I'm going to give it a go.
That's a great question. I think one of the most recent things was getting involved in an AI company. They focus on security, like industrial security and safety through cameras. And that's an area that you're familiar with as a pedestrian, not as an operator. And so I was invited to be a part of the company. I said yes. As you can imagine, I had to educate myself on the industry, what works, what doesn't work, why is this used, why is it preferred to something else. And so I had to really start a new path of knowledge to be able to serve this company well. And that's what I did. And in the beginning, I was trying to leverage mostly on my financial and operational background to bring some value. But as you get more familiar with the industry, then you start adding, I think, a more precise type of value that is well received. thankfully.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And that is a big step into the unknown. I mean, with all the changes, and so that is pretty remarkable that, and I know with, your background and knowledge and being a fast learner, you're going to make magic over there as you've done in many other different places. I would like to also ask you, before we get into the more technical, your role and everything you do, what are some of the things that you do, maybe that you're passionate about, that you do outside of your day-to-day work to balance, to find that peace and to grow that wealth outside of, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it is financial, I don't know, but like, what are some of the things you do to, find that balance in your life?
That's a great question. I block out time in the week for a full day of disconnection. And what that it implies is having an activity that's immersive. We just went to a Renaissance fair with my wife, and when you're there, you're completely in the place. And when we came back, even though we had walked around all day, we never talked, thought, felt any pressure about work or projects or upcoming calls with clients. And so that's one of the big things that I recently incorporated. To be totally fair, but we've been following throughout the year. It was a resolution to have some block time for a full day in the week in order to completely disconnect.
That's interesting. And it's so important to have that disconnection with all the attention grabbing things that we have around. And what got you into the Renaissance Fair? Like, why this in particular?
It was my wife is a big fan, and she suggested it, and we went. There's instances where I suggest let's go to a different city, town, and we just go to that place. And whenever you're experiencing something new in a new environment, I think your brain activates parts that are not active when you're in your routine. And that, in some way or another, is a form of relaxation, of taking a break and letting your brain say, okay, we're not using math, we're not using finance right now. That's good. You're giving me peace.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's very kind of you to be open-minded to go and explore things that are not especially your areas of interest. But absolutely, I'm with you with that. Like trying new things that are not in our comfort zone can also be a way of expanding and relaxing as well. All right. So now tell us about your journey a little bit, like where you started and what brought you to where you're at now at Summa as a consultant. How did you build up to get to where you're at today?
Well, I started my career in PwC, which was a phenomenal starting point. And from there, I was born in Peru. I moved to Costa Rica when I was about 27, 28. I lived there and I studied there. It's the Latino Harvard. It's called the INCAE Business School. And from the MBA program, I got the opportunity to come to the US, to Arizona. So I started from the bottom, basically, and I pretty quickly understood that even though there are Fortune 500 companies out there, um, there's always something you can improve. And even though you might think, well, these guys have everything squared up and figured out, it's not always the case. There's always some, intermediary Excel file or a manual note or something that's not making a process flow correctly. And that's what opened up my eyes after, working for yeah, manufacturing companies and having exposure to life sciences, that there's there's a lot of money that sometimes left in the table or is not properly utilized. And I said, I think I can help some companies and CEOs not leave that money on the table.
Wonderful. So, which brings me to where I met you. You did an amazing presentation at Success North Dallas, and I'm not going to ask you to go through it all, but you had amazing visuals. But could you summarize what you did that day, like what you presented that day? and the
Yeah.
perspective you gave everyone, because it was pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah. Well, the overall conversation was about the space economy, and I focused specifically on some industries inside of the space economy. And I think that the most important thing about space is that it puts everything in perspective. And one of the examples I use is that of an asteroid called 16 Psyche that has the equivalent of 100,000 times the world's GDP. And if we can mine that, clearly that will have an impact on the economy. Like metals might not be that expensive, but it will also elevate the life of everybody living here. Maybe poverty will not be an issue anymore. Maybe disease will still be an issue, but poverty maybe not. And so space really makes things relative. We're not like our problems, our economy, our way of living is not really that impactful as we want to think of it. We want to address it and make it. I have a problem. It's super big. When you look at the great scheme of things, things become relative. I'm not saying disregard your feelings or disregard your challenges. All I'm saying is look at the bigger picture and how something can change the way you live your life. And that's space and multiple fronts, not just the economical or financial, but it can, if you're a fan of Star Trek, hunger is not a problem with that. There's still wars, there's still issues amongst tribes and different planets, but hunger and disease are not issues anymore. That has been solved. Now the problems are still very human, but I think that's what space can bring to us.
I love that. And I remember having so many thoughts. I mean, I agree with you. And I like, because of my background in international relations and political science, I like to look at things from a global perspective. And I see solutions that appear to be so easy and wonder why the actors in powers aren't exercising their power for greater good in the world when we have the capacity. And honestly, watching that presentation just reminded me of that. And when you look at things from a way bigger perspective, like if you look at the Earth from the space, which you had amazing images to really show that perspective, and whether aliens exist or don't exist, or if they're nice or not nice, like if you think about, we are humanity, we are humans, we are one, and those little differences that we see here, when you step aside, we would be so much better and stronger by unifying and preparing together, because we are that little speck in the universe, and by fighting among each other, we are not strengthening ourselves. And
exactly.
And of course, in French we say it takes a little bit of everything to make a world. Il faut de tout pour faire un monde. But I also have that kind of deep yearning to let's unify, guys, because there might be something way bigger than us coming, and we need to stop these silly bickering. That cost a lot of lives.
Exactly. I think that what space does there is, when you're facing a challenge that's common, religion, race, ideology, political, whatever it is, it disappears. It just melts away. Just like in the movie Independence Day.
Yeah.
Right. There's no one's different than anybody else. It's us versus, you become a tribe again.
Yeah.
You're not a sub tribe of I like Manchester United and you like, I don't know, Liverpool, whatever. We're always trying to find our tribe. And I think we are part of a global tribe, not just a local one.
I do have that, and still have hopes that we do need to unify that human tribe, because at the end of the day, we are all connected. We all affect each other in some ways, and we have to help each other grow and be better together. But hey, that's I wasn't going to go there, but it really, the presentation you gave just brought back so many things from what I meditate on a lot because of the background I have and being super international and having traveled all over, which makes me see the world as a globe where, it's not just it's yeah we're just all so connected. So to get back to you and you came, so you have this background, coming from Latin America here to the US, working in this big corporation. So at what point do you break from Fortune 500s where you worked? What made you break that, or make the jump over?
Yeah. Well, there's two main lines. One, I like independence. Sometimes following and this is probably going to resonate with a lot of people in your audience, following that hierarchy to make a decision that's obvious and having to go through the politics and selling and pitching for something that needs to be done urgently can be a little frustrating. Like to you, it's really easy, like even no cost of implementation. It can be done immediately. You just need somebody to say, let's do it. Let me dedicate some time to it. And sometimes you get a no. And so whenever I thought of that, I said, if I ever start a company, I need to talk to the CEOs, and this has to be an issue for them. It has to be a problem that they want to solve, so that I come in just like a surgeon, fix you, and then I leave. So I don't need to go through the politics part. Obviously, there's some politics involved everywhere, but at least I go straight to what the issue is and try to solve it. That's what drove me to say, I think this is a good way to add value without having to be a full-time employee. I just basically come in when they need it and then leave as soon as it's resolved.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I understand. And I feel lucky to be in a place, and for the past few years, where I have a lot of independence in what I do, even though it's not my own company, but it's so important for moving forward faster, the well-being of the organization, which is the people inside of the organization. So I understand. So with that, what are some of the things that you have noticed that organizations sometimes or often overlook, where you can come in and show there is better efficiencies? I can help you with this. Like, what are some of the more common, like, because you have worked with many small and medium businesses and big corporation, what are those that stands out to you, areas where you come in and you can provide solutions?
Sure. Well, the growing pains are always they're a great place to get started. Companies that grow too fast might expand too fast, might hire too fast, might start purchasing too fast. So that's one thing. High growing companies usually have a challenge where they say, well, I need to fulfill orders, or I need to serve my clients, and I just ran out of money. Also, in that same line, in manufacturing companies, and specifically in that area and also life sciences, when you have a cash position that you cannot anticipate and predict over time, because you're based on milestones, you if you don't have a clear line of sight with your cash position, then you're in big trouble. There's a very famous quote that reads, revenues are vanity, profits are sanity, but cash is king. And it really explains the story of a lot of companies. Like, I sell $10 million a month. Okay, but are you making money? No, we're gonna eventually go to that place. And then the company's money runs out. In desperation, they try to raise money at a lower valuation, so they pretty much sell a large part of their company, and it becomes a mess. They just become glorified CEOs, or glorified employees under the title of CEO or co-founder, because they just work for investors from that point. So that's what I try to avoid. I want to have CEOs protect their equity, protect the way they run their business. But in order to do that, you need to have certain systems in place and have somebody to say, wait, we're going too fast. You don't need to go that fast. And I usually usually mention the example of a car. Finance is really like the brakes of a car. If you, not because we want things to go slower, it's actually because we want them to go faster. If you don't trust your brakes, you're never going to go at top speed. So if you have somebody that tells you we're going to like racing a flag, right? You're going too fast. We shouldn't be doing this quickly, or we shouldn't expand. You're putting the brakes in the car. You need to trust finance in that sense. And obviously, I'm not saying trust blindly, not trust by verify. But I'm saying finance role is really important in that sense to say, I think we're going too fast. And then the flip side, you know, we have a lot of runway. We can go as fast as we want. Let's go.
Yeah, that's very wise, and of course, you need the expertise, the knowledge, the perspective to be able to put these type of things in place. Having again experts on hand to do that is crucial for the longevity and success of the company. So now I want to ask you if I know that you've helped a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, a lot of people, but is there maybe one story that stands out to you where the situation was really bad? You came in and you're the hero. You saved the day. And it also motivates you to keep at it and to keep doing what you do because you saw the success and the benefit that, you know, your expertise was able to bring to that
Yeah.
organization.
Well, I mean, I can think of a couple of big ones. One that stands out was this was a company that had bad terms, but bad margins and a bad market that were assigned to them by their franchisor, right? It was not a food franchise, it was a CPG company. We prepared some financials and went to negotiate with, we knew what we wanted. We wanted a better market, we wanted better profitability and better terms. So we walked them through why we were in a situation that was not good. Overall, like if you add those three, that's bad. And we walked them through and they accepted all the terms we suggested because we were able to communicate to them why it was not working for us. And yeah, we got extended terms. We got an increased margin, and also they assigned two new markets to the company once they realized, oh yeah, this is a very tricky market based on what you're explaining and the data they received, right? So it was a huge win because the company was able to, with a bigger market, they could also reduce their costs because their fixed costs got not perfectly diluted, but it got watered down in more market.
Wonderful. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Which organization or companies are you mostly focused on? Who suits your services best?
I
Who does
think
your services suits best? Sorry, somehow
yeah.
the French kicks in. And I get things
Happens to
reversed.
me in Spanish too. It's okay. I would say life science companies and manufacturing companies because I know that cash flow can be really tricky for them. Cash is really one of the metrics that gets lost in translation as the company grows and it gets a little bit more fancy and like, oh, let's look at EBITDA or let's look at this, what's I don't know, the NOPAT, which are just financial metrics. And given the nature of life sciences that you can have like a feast and famine type of cycle where you raise money and then you use it and you need to raise again. Very tricky for life sciences companies to manage their cash flow without the proper systems. And in manufacturing, even though there's proper plans, purchasing can be a big challenge, right? That's the one that moves the needle in manufacturing companies. I think rent, payroll, services are easy to predict, right? That's 100% control of them. But if you get all of a sudden a huge wave of demand and you want to fulfill it, you need to purchase more. And that usually throws off a lot of things inside of the company. So to answer your question succinctly, I think life sciences companies that are growing and manufacturing companies that are also in the growth stage and need to identify where their cash is going.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this. And as you know, I could be talking to you all day because I think it's really fascinating what you do and your processes and methodologies. What are some of your goals this year? What are some of the things that you're hyper focused on? And I ask so that we know how to support you.
Oh, thank you. Well, goals this year is I have some speaking engagements that I had planned for. Thankfully, so far in the year, they're coming together. I am developing a product called Total Operational Control, TOC, which is basically a framework based on my experience and tested practices that allow companies to basically have proper control of their financial results. And that comes from building the systems and having the right tools in place so that you don't get any hiccups or surprises at the end of the month or where did the money go? And you can have a proper focus on growing your company, being more strategic, developing new products, and not working in the business, more of working on the business.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So where can people find you? What is the best way to get in touch with you? And we will have a lot of the information in the notes, but I want to hear it from you. Like, how do people approach you? Where they can find you online, or what is your preferred way of being reached?
Thank you, Juliana. Well, the website is summa.consulting. That's Summa with a double M, or people can write an email to contact@summa.consulting. I'm also on LinkedIn as David Lopez. You're probably going to find a couple of hundred David Lopez's in LinkedIn, but my handle is David@Summa. Everything's spelled out.
Awesome. And we'll also, I'll have you on my page and we'll share wherever we can share. Thank you so much, David. I know you're super busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to come on the Brave New Wealth podcast, share your expertise, your journey, your knowledge, and I hope that you'll come again.
Juliana, anytime you want. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Brave New Wealth podcast. I'm really glad that David Lopez was able to join me and share his journey, his experience, his expertise. Please go find him and his team so they can help you and your organization scale financially and utilize some of those methodologies. Thank you to Engineer Tax Services for sponsoring the Brave New Wealth podcast. If you are a real estate investor, CPA, financial advisor, business owner, reach out to us so we can show you some of those more sophisticated strategies to help you lower your tax burden. I hope you'll join me for the next conversation of the Brave New Wealth podcast. À bientôt.